DICOM media, one of my most hated things as working as a PACS admin. The primary way imaging studies move from one organization to another is by patient-borne CD or DVD. So stop and think about this for a minute. If you go on vacation in the Bahamas, you would share your vacation photos on Facebook or Snapchat. You could share them all kinds of ways through all kinds of different applications. But if you have a chest x-ray and you want to get it from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, you're going to have to burn that on a CD and carry it with you. Importing and exporting studies from DICOM media will be a large part of your day as a PACS admin. Most facilities have some form of network connection to other local facilities. So the two Lancaster hospitals may have a DICOM connection to move images back and forth, but if you need to take your images to CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, they're not going to have a network for that. And everyone is just not connected to everyone else. That's why we end up using CDs. Someday in the future, there will be a nationwide medical imaging network. I hope. The DICOM file format. DICOM files stored on media file have the same format and rules just as DICOM images stored in PACS. They have a preamble, prefix, and DICOM header. This is on media, so there's no DICOM handshake. So the association establishment rules have to be provided by the DICOM header to the DICOM reading application. On media, there are three important DICOM tag groups that perform these functions. They are the O2 group, the O4 group, and the O8 group. The preamble. The preamble is a fixed string of 128 bits. It starts at the very top of the CD. It's the very first thing you would run to when you put the CD into your computer. It is a fixed string of 128 bits. The DICOM standard does not define the structure of the preamble, so each application can use it as it chooses to. Many applications don't use the preamble at all, in which case all bytes are set to 00H. The preamble does not use a DICOM value representation. Prefix. This is the most important part. 4 bytes containing the character string DICM. The prefix is intended to be used to recognize that this file is or is not a DICOM file. This is the definitive way to tell if a file is in DICOM format or not. Just checking the file suffix .dcm is not a way to tell if the file is truly DICOM. So a patient brings a CD and it ends up in your office and you put it in. It has some images on it and they are .jpeg. If they're JPEGs, they're not DICOM. But what if they're .dcm? It's pretty easy to just backspace out the .jpeg and change it to be .dcm. Did that magically make it a DICOM file? No, that does not make it a DICOM file. What you want to do is open the image in Notepad, look at the DICOM header, and see if it contains the prefix dot, not dot. It just has that string in the prefix DICM. Then you know you're working truly with a DICOM file. The O2 group. The DICOM tag group starting with 002 is the most important element on a CD. The most important. Sounds like a test question. It's called the file meta information. It contains the transfer syntax UID that works like the DICOM handshake. It does the transfer syntax part. It decides whether we're going to do this big endian, little endian. It defines how the following DICOM object is encoded and how it can be transferred. The O8 group. This is the actual DICOM object data. It contains the information about the study, what it is, when it was done, what modality it was done on, and I skipped the O4 group because it's part of something called the DICOM directory. So let's go down to, is it a DICOM CD? All problem CDs will come to you, the radiology informatics person. First thing you need to determine is whether or not it contains DICOM images. DICOM file IDs are a clue. A file ID starting with 1.2.840.10,008 will almost certainly be a DICOM file, and hopefully you're getting kind of used to seeing this prefix of numbers in the UIDs. Right? When you see that, okay, that's a DICOM number. I know I'm dealing with a DICOM file. Just because it says .dcm does not mean it's a DICOM file. Just because it says .jpg does not mean it isn't a DICOM file, because just as easily as you can change JPG to DCM, you can change DCM to JPG. The definitive way to know if you are looking at a DICOM file is to look for the DICOM prefix and make sure it is DICM. Special DICOM file formats. There are two special DICOM file formats. The DICOM directory file, commonly called the DICOM dir, and the secure DICOM file, commonly called encrypted DICOM. The DICOM dir is a special DICOM file you find on media that works much like the contents of a book. Right? Contents of a book tell you what is in each chapter. Secure or encrypted DICOM is a more secure DICOM file that generally requires a key to open it. DICOM dir. The DICOM dir stores the information about DICOM files in a given directory, kind of like a small DICOM database placed in the root folder of the media. The DICOM dir organizes the data into 4 principal levels. They are patient, study, series, and image. For each entry in the DICOM dir sequence, the DICOM dir object stores 2 types of data: entry-specific selection keys and basic directory information objects. Entry-specific selection keys. This data type is provided to facilitate item searches. It's kind of like an index in a book, right? So where the contents tell you what's in each chapter, the index will tell you exactly what page you can find certain information on. For a real-world example, if you put a DICOM CD in a PAX workstation, you get a list of the patients and the studies to choose from. That list comes from the software reading the selection keys in the DICOM directory. Basic directory information objects. These are the now long forgotten, because I've been talking gosh for 6 minutes, O4 elements. The basic directory information object stores directory related information about the DICOM dir entries. So here it is. Here's a picture, right? So here you have the O2 group, and then you have the O4 group, okay? And so offset the next directory record 0. It means put the next directory record right up against the existing or the first directory record. So they're right up against each other. And again, you see these SOP class IDs that will give you an idea of what that function is. So there's the O2 group, there's the O4 group, and last but not least, you have the O8 group. So here you have all of this DICOM information. This is all about the study, and that's why it's in the O8 group. So those are the groups we're talking about. That's what they look like. And last but not least, obviously DICOM files on a CD, DVD are open for anyone to access. It's hard to crack a DICOM header and change data. Given the complexity involved just in DICOM, most places do not encrypt their CDs. Most PAX DICOM software does not support encryption. Security-conscious places tend to use access security rather than complex encryption. So, before this class, did you know anything about DICOM? If I had given you a DICOM CD before this class, would you know to go look into the O8 and the O2 and O4 tag groups to make changes to alter the DICOM information on a CD? No, you wouldn't even think to do that. So that's why most people don't use security. DICOM is so complicated that it just doesn't need to be secure. All right, thank you for watching.